Hello, avid readers, book nerds, and casual observers. Welcome to the Read Along, brought to you by the Lit Roundtable. I'm Anna.
And I'm Joseph, and today we are talking about Hall of Smoke by H.M. Long. Okay, welcome back.
Yeah, part 3.
Part 3 of Hall of Smoke.
Today we're talking about chapters 12 through 15.
Yes, and there's a lot of exciting things to unpack.
Yeah, there's some like pretty intense shenanigans in this section.
It's probably some of the most like action that we've gotten so far, I think.
Yeah, I mean, other
in
than
terms of, epic proportions.
Okay, yeah, we've had some intense things happen, like when she fought a Moscat in the Hall of Smoke. I guess we saw the aftermath of some intense things.
Yeah. It was So I mean, we got to see some more of the Soldurni, ritual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
With trying to get Olden to show up for their. It was like a solstice thing, I think, is what I read.
Yeah, they have like a sacrifice and ceremony. I don't know if it's tied to the season or not. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It was cool to see though, like the different culture stuff happening.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how Hessa interacts with it because she's coming from a totally different background.
Yeah. And we get to also process it with Nisian, her new buddy,
new character,
former Arpa legionnaire, who's from he's still Soldurni, but so it's just kind of interesting, kind of like he's still like on call because if a war kicks off, they're gonna come grab him and make him fight again. But he's with his people now, and he's like an ex. I mean, I picture them as they call themselves legionnaires, so I'm like, okay, this is the Roman Empire. So
well, right, and then when they showed up, which they show up in like the last chapter, they're very
even their names
very Roman Empire-esque.
Yeah, even their names are very. They sound reminiscent of that type of name.
Which also, she comments on how young they are, and she's like, "Oh, these war machines are just kids. They're just boys." And I thought that was a really interesting observation because we too like to conscribe young men and women.
18-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. To fight adult wars. Anyway, this is not a political podcast.
Yeah.
But it felt like commentary. A lot of this feels like commentary.
Right, for sure. Absolutely. I think, because she said their faces were all like clean shaven, their hair was cut really short, they looked like boys. So I don't know if it's maybe they looked younger because of their clean shavenness or they were actually young. Probably both.
I thought she made a comment about how it looked like they had been attempting, and it was like, I might have missed that, or that like they probably hadn't shaved for a while, but they just had like the barest of barely beards coming in.
Yes. Patchy.
Very patchy.
Plus this is a fantasy world. It's not the same as here. So Nisian was hiding from the Arpa legionnaires in that cave they end up in for a while, I think, to avoid getting conscripted, but then eventually he got nabbed. So who knows how young they conscript people, like, to be in their...
Right. Well, the way his mom was talking to Hessa about it made it sound like it was like a seasonal thing where the Arpa would come and like try to collect the young boys to get them to be part of the Legionnaires, and that was why he and a lot of young boys would hide in the caves. Also, the Arpa only have young men in their army. They don't have any women, which Hessa thinks is very odd. Because the Eang and people will, anyone, if you're a good fighter, you can fight. So, or if you're good at other things, do the other things.
Yeah, it's basically you just do what you're good at. So if you end up fighting, that just means you're good at fighting. So
right. So interesting, in like witnessing her deconstructing her own culture in a way, but she's learning that not everything about it is bad. But there are certain things that are problematic for sure, which is true anytime you're deconstructing a culture. There are good and bad things that come into play.
Interacting with other cultures you've never interacted with before.
Yeah.
You notice things they do, and I mean, her bubble's been burst pretty effectively.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot of that with pretty much every new stop we get to. I think there's going to be a kind of eye-opening experience, which is good for her and for us, because it's also eye-opening for us because we're like discovering these things along with her.
Yeah.
Because we've never been to these places either. So that's a really good way, like storytelling. That's a good storytelling tool because we're learning along with her.
Yeah.
So
totally,
we can relate to her in that way.
Totally. One of my favorite moments from this section was actually in the first chapter chapter 12 of this week. When they're around the fire before they have the ceremony, like in preparation of that. And that's when she meets Ewith and her son Nisian, and they convince her to sing eventually. Yeah. And the little girl, I don't actually know how young she is. I guess I picture like a middle school age girl.
That's what I picture too.
So not little, exactly, but young girl. Comes up to her and asks her if she's mourning her people, and she's like, "Yeah, I guess I am." And so then the girl sings along with her, because she wants to support her in that. And it was just one of those moments where, like, it's so cool to see when kids are the ones that are able to reach across the aisle and offer kindness where it's not necessarily owed. But that's not what kindness is about. And I think that was an important moment for Hessa, too. Because it's not just about the hearth lot at that point. It's like, you're not just offering me a place to stay in and helping me get better. You're literally tuning in to my grief, and you're making space for it. Yeah.
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 I think part of that is also, like, other people were, like, listening to her, but they weren't saying anything, but the kid did.
Yeah.
I think part of that is also like the childlike innocence, you know?
Totally.
She hasn't experienced those things, so or she also probably just doesn't like know the social cues of like maybe that's impolite to ask someone like point blank.
Yeah.
But not saying that in like a I wish you didn't do that type of thing, but just a observation on maybe why she was the one to actually say something.
No, totally. There were lots of times when I worked at an elementary school that kids would ask you something that you're like, wow, an adult would not have asked me that, but I appreciate that you did.
Kids can sometimes cut straight to the heart of the issue, can't they?
Oh yeah. In the most surprising of ways. But
yeah,
I like that part. I thought that was really sweet.
Same. My favorite part was the Thunderdome. of the and that's not to get confused with later on when they're like in an actual storm.
Right.
But when they're doing this ritual to try to get Olden to show his face, because we've established he's in hiding because of some interlopers, some other deities like shaking things up, in the high halls, and they're trying to get Olden to show up, and he's not showing up. People are freaking out. They're looking down at the ground at like the clovers because they'll open up and bloom when he's nearby. And eventually the clovers do open up, and they're like black and withered and evil looking. So
right.
It's very creepy. And then the interloping god shows up and just is like yelling out, "Where is Olden? I'm here to kill your god," which kicks off the what I called the Thunderdome. We get some god versus god battle and action here because Olden shows up like you're gonna come into my house and disrespect me in front of my peeps.
Yeah.
And Olden shows up and actually tries to fight this thing.
Yeah.
And it was very epic and intense.
Yeah. And again, props to H.M. Long, because when the flowers turn like black and shadowy, Hessa notices it. She obviously doesn't know what it's supposed to do, but knows that that's probably not it.
Yeah.
And so, again, I just really appreciate the way that she's having us learn about the world the same way that Hessa is learning about the world. Mm-hmm. It's very cool. And she, she springs into action when this happens. Everyone else starts fleeing. And she goes up to the old priestess, who's like the oldest lady she's ever seen in her life. Eang people apparently don't live as old as the Soldani people do.
I mean, they worship the goddess of war. What could go wrong there?
Right.
I wonder why they don't have a high life expectancy.
Yeah. And she's like trying to help her, and things go wrong very quickly. But the old lady asks her, "Where is Eang?" And Hessa's like, "Yeah, good question. I don't know. I don't know. She should be here." Yeah. And then she like summons her and like lets her take control of her body, which was wild.
Yeah. She gets possessed by Eang and helps Olden fight off this other being, which I looked up the name before we started and I immediately forgot it. Do you have it written down?
Yeah, it's Ashiklon. Ashiklon?
Ashiklon.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how they said it in the audiobook, but
I actually read that part. I didn't listen to it, so I think that's right though. But yeah, I mean, Olden comes in, tries to hit him with his like shepherd's crook staff thing, and that breaks in half. Mm-hmm. And then they're just like trading blows after blows. Also, this Ashiklon guy is like super creepy. Like he's like talking before the fight even kicks off, and he like tries to kill the priest, but Hessa uses some of her Ingi fire to like protect the priest, like to cleanse the priest of evil. And then bad guy notices that there's an Ingi priest here, and
because I forgot he like shot like it made me think of like Black Whip from My Hero Academia. But he like shoots them with his arm. It's very
his appendage shoots out and like stabs her. He's very incorporeal.
Yeah, I was like, he's not like flesh and bone, so it's kind of weird. But and he like pierces this priestess, and he doesn't even realize that Hessa's there, basically. But he also turned the acolytes into dust, and that totally wigs out Hessa.
Oof, he just Thanos to the two acolytes that were there too. Yeah. Just like...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then she grabs the priestess's ankle and does the Engi fire cleansing, and that's when he's like, oh.
Also, him like incinerating the two acolytes that were there happened in the fluttering of an eye. Like, like Hessa was trying really hard not to blink, but then she did, and all it took was that time, and the acolytes were gone, and it was just ashes in her face. It's just, that is so messed up.
Yeah. And he's talking about how he's a part of the old world, and these new gods are, nothing compared to the old gods, and that kind of wigs her out. I did write down, like, when Eang first, takes possession of Hessa's body, because I thought that it was like really cool. So, do you care if I read that real quick?
No, go for it.
Okay. She tasted like iron on my lips. She was the coldest hour of a winter night and the brazen heat of the summer sun. She overwhelmed me, roaring through muscle and veins, marrow and bone, until that fire, that presence was all I knew. And so while she's like possessed, she also feels Aang's fear in the very like back of her mind. And so that's another like bubble bursting moment that her goddess would have any kind of fear. Why would a goddess need to fear anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was quickly established. It's because if she hadn't shown up, this thing would have just totally trounced Olden.
Yeah.
Like he was he was on the ropes for sure.
Yeah.
This he was about to get taken out before Hessa summoned Eang to possess her body and take over and fight with her body, basically. She grabs like the two busted pieces of the staff. It was such an anime fight moment.
Oh, it
like
totally was.
It was such an anime fight because she like hurls half of the staff to Olden. He catches it in the air, and then like the flowers that were black underneath him burst into like this vibrant red, which is the color they're supposed to be. And then they like stab the creature from both sides with the staff and like join the staff in between and just like pierce it and kill it. And
they didn't kill it. She makes a point of telling Missy that he's not killed. He is bound again because now there's a binding tree.
A big old tree. The staff turned into a tree.
Which she mentions that the binding tree is like the one that Savala made the night that she told her that she would have to kill a mascot.
I think well, not made, but was there. There was one there.
Okay.
So there's like these binding trees are around. So I'm like,
right, what are they holding? Because they're not dead things, they're just bound things.
So the old gods aren't even actually dead. They're just bound.
Right.
But these new gods can die.
Right. Well, and Eang says that she's not afraid of this thing. She's afraid of what this thing represents.
What it's heralding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's to come.
I think the old gods are busting loose.
I think so too.
And we're gonna have quite the showdown because they're probably a little unhappy about being chained up in trees for however long.
Yeah.
But no, that was a really, really intense fight. It was really well written. Super. I mean, I don't know how to like. I'm having a hard time articulating my words, but it was just very. It was very easy to read. Like, I blew through that chapter. Didn't even realize that it was almost over, and then it was, and it was like, man.
Yeah.
That was an action-packed, intense chapter. So
yeah,
good job with the super cool God versus God fight scene.
Yes. And Hessa's not killed by the possession because she was pretty much prepared to die because previous possessions it left the host not alive anymore. So, but Eang spares her and calls upon the goddess of healing to heal her, which is kind of an amazing thing. It did not regrow her ear, though. So even the goddess of healing cannot... Well, hold on.
Well, she said that her Engi fire can't heal a severed piece. It can just knit. It can just like heal, like close the wound, but it can't re-knit what's gone. But who knows about the healing god lady?
That's
Maybe she brought her ear back.
Well, no, she didn't, because she specifically made a point of like everything else was better. Like her wrist was like 100% better. And then she was like excited and reached up to touch her ear thinking that maybe that was also fixed. And it was not. And she assumes that it's a reminder of her shortcomings.
Also it was Almascat's dog that did it. And she couldn't use her powers around Almascat. So maybe it has something to do with that. Like there's some kind of like block there from healing that totally.
Oh,
who knows?
Maybe. But I think I
don't know.
I think she's probably right to assume that it's a way of reminding her that she has previously failed. Because these new gods seem kind of vindictive that way, except for Olden. Olden seems pretty chill.
Dude, Olden's pretty chill. I'd definitely be one of the Soldurni dudes. Yeah, for sure. They in my head they're kind of like Scottish. Because the name Soldurni. Or it's also because the lady that reads these is definitely like Celtic or Scottish or something in the audiobook. So it makes me think of that. But
yeah.
Anyway, if Olden had been wearing a kilt, I would not have been shocked.
Right.
But anyway, we did kind of get like the aftermath of that fight. Also, it was interesting that Eang she seems a little petty, and in that she said, "It seems like a lot of the people here are under the impression that you are me." So make sure that they know that's not the case. And then she leaves. And it's like, oh, come on, dude. You're so petty. Like,
no, she totally is.
Like, you think Hessa was just going to masquerade as you and pretend to be you? You know she wasn't going to do that. You're just petty and jealous and dumb.
Oh, yes, she is. She also told... So this happened in a dream. But she told Hessa that she had found the boy. And that the situation was more complicated than she realized.
Yeah, I'm super curious to see what's going on with that.
Right? I'm like... Because then she's like, why did you step in? Like, how did she put it? Why did you claim him? And Hessa's like, well, because his dad's gone and someone had to do it. And then Eang doesn't elaborate. And in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, is the father actually Aang's? Not, I keep getting their names mixed up. Is the father actually Hessa's husband? Her dead husband?
Or I mean, that'd be a rough time.
Oh my gosh.
Also, I was like, is the dad not from, like, is the dad not one of the Eang people? Like, is
it not Vistic?
Is she is the dad almost cat? I don't know. Just start naming characters.
I don't think it would be almost cat, but
like, because she seemed confused. Like, why did you claim this kid? As like, maybe she was confused because it's like, this isn't one of our people. Why'd you claim the kid? Or like, they're only like half, you know. So maybe something like that.
Oh, see, and I thought it was, why did you claim this kid? Do you have a personal connection to this beyond just you were there?
Could be any of those things. We'll see, though.
One of my favorite things is how we can read the same thing and come away with different predictions or questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the
Makes it interesting.
Cool things about reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And we get to hash it out here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm super curious to know what's going on with that kid now. Because that was kind of like a subplot that's been kind of like brushed off on the back burner for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But at least we know that Ing's been checking in too. Like, she's doing what she said she would.
Right.
So that's nice.
Yes. Yes.
And now she's kind of like, I also got the vibe that now that she has been checking in, she's like, oh, I'm glad that I'm checking in because this is weird. Like, that's kind of the vibes I was getting, was that she's kind of interested in this kid now, but like, whether that's in a good way or a bad way, we'll see. But something is happening with that kid that is perplexing her.
Right.
And I'm so curious.
Yeah. And she leaves a guardian owl around Hessa.
Mm-hmm. Just like the cover, there's an owl on the cover hanging out on her, like perched on her hand or something. So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a good quote from Nissian. He's not particularly faithful. He kind of thinks that the gods are, at least the new gods are, whatever.
Yeah, he's a little agnostic.
Yeah.
I mean,
he knows that they exist, but he doesn't think that they do what they promise.
Yeah. Yeah. He seems kind of like a cynical, utilitarian, ex-military type.
Yeah.
You know, that's his character.
It is. He says, well, the gods are gods. They are powerful and fickle and flawed.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, that's good.
To err is divine.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Which, just so you know, I looked up the second book. It doesn't have a subtitle. So, I know.
Nuts.
The first book got the good subtitle. Yeah, and so then she leaves with Nissian and his mom and the other writers to return out to the plains, but they're going to drop her off at the border is the plan.
Yep, back with the Engen, at the Engen border is where they're going. And that's when there's a storm and they have to stop in a cave, and then like this people show up. Which is weird. We hashed that out kind of.
We did. But before the people show up and all that happens, there's they spar with each other, Nissian and Hessa. And oh my gosh, the tension.
The sexual tension.
The sexual tension is crazy. No, the whole time
maybe
I was
it's
like,
not, but
no, it's totally there. Or at least like from an outside perspective, it's there. I don't know if Hessa realizes that that's what's happening, but
yeah, it's definitely just picturing it happening in like a movie. That's definitely what would be happening. But like at the same time, she just lost her husband, so I mean, she might not. I mean, in my head, she's probably not ready for that kind of thing.
No, I don't think she is either.
But sometimes you just get swept up in the moment.
Yeah, totally.
And you just kind of have to swing sharp, pointy metal objects at each other for a while.
Yeah, it's very healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it was
Healthy's the
interesting.
word.
It was interesting to read like their different fighting techniques, and she went into it pretty cocky.
Yeah, she thought she was going to have the upper hand for sure.
And she for sure did not.
No. In fact, he like without powers, he would definitely win.
Yeah.
Like no question in my mind. It was really interesting hearing about how she was kind of analyzing his fighting style compared to hers, and how hers is like really weak in one-on-one compared to his, because apparently like the Engi people rely on like being in a big group and in like the intimidation factor
and shields, and it's very Viking.
Yeah, and like the shield walls and stuff.
Yeah.
But his, like, she was like, but all of his attacks are incredibly precise and have a purpose and intentional.
Which is very very Roman Empire. Roman Empire versus the Vikings.
Yeah. But it's also weird because she mentioned that the sword he was using was curved and didn't have a crossguard, which she was like unfamiliar with, which made me think like he's got some kind of like cutlass or something. Or maybe it's like a Roman sax, which also was like a curved thing. Or Greek, I don't know. But anyway.
I don't know my ancient weapons that well.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like the Spartan sword, but the Roman swords were not. They were straight. But anyway, I'm picturing cutlasses now. But for those Soldurni swords.
Yeah.
But that was a really interesting scene, kind of getting to break down like she's kind of breaking down her deficits, and you can tell that she's like being sharpened, because all of these experiences she's learning. She's learning different fighting techniques. She's learning how to get by without just relying on her powers as a crutch. I think that fighting with Nisian will definitely help when she goes toe-to-toe with Amistad again, because she'll have better one-on-one skills, and she'll be better at fighting without the powers, which she won't be able to do in that scenario. So.
And she's learning very quickly. She's a fast learner. She's picking it up.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there's the whole gross thing where they pretend that she's their slave when the soldiers show up, so that they don't take her away or whatever. And Nisian is apparently famous for being unmarried, so he couldn't pretend that she was his wife. So.
Yeah. Conveniently single. Wow. The tension's killing me.
Intentionally single and pointing it out. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting stuff. I really hope that they don't just drop her off and that he like keeps going north with her.
I would be shocked.
Yeah.
But I was also shocked when Omascat put her in the river. So I don't know.
Yeah, I did think that we were going to hang out with him a little while longer.
Yeah.
And like maybe that they would end up having a similar dynamic as Nisian, because like he would open her eyes to like Eang not passing the vibe check. But that could still happen with Nisian.
You know what? You've reminded me of something. Before Nisian was revealed, Silgi's family kept mentioning like that their cousin was coming and that he would be able to help her. And I was like, what if the cousin is Omascat? And he shows up and he's like, ugh.
That would have been really awkward.
Why are you here again? But it wasn't him.
Just keeps popping up.
Yeah. But it wasn't him. It was some other dude.
Yeah.
So. No flashbacks when she was a kid this time, though.
No. I guess we'll see if and when we get more of those. But...
Maybe we'll get 2 in next week's reading.
Yeah, so I really want to know what's up with Six-Knit's kid. Mm-hmm. I really want to know what's up with Svala, the priest, like the high priest. Yeah. That still hasn't gotten resolved yet. Like, what the heck she been doing? She definitely didn't die.
No. Ooh, which that reminds me. Eang was like, how did you know how to call me to yourself like that? Did Svala show you? And she was like, no, she didn't show me, but I watched her do it, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just another.
Hessa's smart.
Hessa is very smart. And she's got a good memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's been very photographic. Very devout for a long time.
Yeah. And then one screw up.
Yeah.
And banishment.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes for her. But
it's worth noting that Eang was very subdued when she talked to her in the dream after the fight. Mm-hmm. I think that Eang knows that she accidentally showed some of the fear and was a little embarrassed by that, and also knowing that this is like one of her last, if not her last, like priest follower person. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, I guess I have to like care about you and
yeah,
have an owl.
Right.
Pity owl. Mm-hmm. Whether the owl is friendly or just there as like so Eang can like spy on her, who knows? But
unclear. But the owl seems to have ditched now that the Arpa legionnaires are there. But I think he's probably just hiding out somewhere else.
Yeah, in my head I figured that was more due to the storm than anything else, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Maybe it's because of the Arpa people, who knows?
Yeah.
But super interesting section. Very, very entertaining. So I'm really excited to read the next chunk.
Yeah, me too. Speaking of...
And what might that be?
Next time, read chapters 16 through 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another 4 chapters.
Yep.
Very good. I'm excited.
Me too. It'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well...
Cool. I guess that'll wrap it up. So until next time, happy reading.
And we'll talk at you next time.
Later.
Bye.